Okay, so you know how every time you get in the car, you look in the rear view mirror, right?
Yeah, of course. It's like second nature.
But have you ever thought about, like, what the future holds for the rear view mirror?
Well, that's exactly what we are going to do today. It's going to be a deep dive.
We are going to do a deep dive into the current and future of the automotive rear view mirror market, and we have a pretty fascinating report to help guide us on this journey.
Yes, we are looking at the Global Automotive Rear View Mirror Market Report 2025. It's a report from Cognitive Market Research,
It's packed with data.
projections all the way out to 2033.
I know.
Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride.
We're going to be looking at everything from the current market size to what's driving the growth, how different regions are performing, all those emerging trends,
All the different types of mirrors.
all the cool stuff. By feature, vehicle type, everything.
So basically, where is this market headed?
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
And let's start with the size of this market. It's probably way bigger than you think.
Way bigger.
So the report estimates that the global automotive rearview mirror market will reach USD 12,524.5 million in 2025.
Wow.
That's a lot of mirrors.
That's a lot of mirrors for something that seems so simple, right?
Right. But as we are going to find out, it's actually quite complex these days.
Oh, absolutely. And the projections show that this market's not slowing down. By 2033, it is expected to reach USD 19,221.18 million.
That's huge growth.
It is.
That's a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR for you data nerds out there, of 5.50% from 2025 to 2033.
That's pretty impressive.
That's huge. So for those of you following along at home or in your car, the base year for this data is 2024. They are looking at historical data from 2021 to 2024. The estimated year is 2025, and the forecast period goes all the way out to 2033.
A lot of data.
It's a comprehensive look at this market.
So now that we know just how massive this market is globally, let's look at where all this activity is concentrated geographically.
Yeah. Where in the world are all these mirrors being made and sold?
Where do you think?
I'm going to guess North America might be leading the pack just because of the sheer volume of vehicles there.
You would be absolutely right. North America is currently the largest market, taking a big slice of the pie with over 40% of the global market revenue.
So we're talking big money here.
Big money. Their market size in 2025 is estimated at USD 509.80 million, with a projected CAGR of 3.7% from 2025 to 2033.
That's a pretty healthy growth rate, too. Let's break that down a little further, though. Within North America, who's really driving this market?
Unsurprisingly, the U.S. is a major player.
Of course.
They're projected to reach USD 3,952.73 million in 2025, with a slightly lower CAGR of 3.5%.
Okay.
And then you have Canada, a significant contributor at USD 601.18 million and a bit stronger growth at 4.5%. And then there's Mexico coming in at USD 455.89 million with a CAGR of 4.2%. So you see, all three countries play their part.
Yeah, it seems like they are all kind of in a similar range in terms of their CAGR.
They are.
So why is North America such a powerhouse in the rearview mirror market?
Well, I think it's safe to say that a key factor is the huge emphasis on vehicle safety in North America. They have been at the forefront of adopting those advanced driver assistance systems, the ADS, and guess what?
What?
A lot of those are tied to mirrors.
Oh, yeah.
Think about blind spot detection, lane departure warnings. Increasingly, those are using sensors that are right there, integrated into the mirrors, or at least working alongside them. And of course, you have those auto-dimming mirrors, which have become, pretty much standard in a lot of vehicles. Those enhance safety and comfort. And then another thing is the popularity of high-end vehicles in North America. Those often come loaded with all the latest and greatest mirror tech.
Yeah. When you mentioned auto-dimming mirrors, I was thinking with all the long road trips people take in North America and those wide-open highways, it makes sense. It makes sense that people would want something to reduce that glare.
Absolutely. And the report actually specifically points to those electrochromatic mirrors, the ones that automatically darken, as a major driver in the North American market.
Cool. So, safety, comfort, and maybe a little bit of style, it seems to be all coming together in North America.
Yes.
So now let's shift gears a bit, cross the Atlantic, and see what's going on in Europe.
All right, let's go to Europe.
They are a major automotive hub as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how they stack up.
So Europe holds a substantial part of the global market as well, over 30% of the global revenue, and their market size in 2025 is estimated at USD 3,757.35 million, with a projected CAGR of 4.0% from 2025 to 2033. So you can see pretty similar growth rate to North America.
Yeah, those are pretty close numbers. And Europe's got a pretty diverse car market, right? You have everything from those tiny city cars to luxury brands.
Absolutely, a really diverse market. The report highlights a bunch of key players. You've got the UK, France, Germany, those big ones, and then Italy, Russia, Spain, all making significant contributions. And then you have those smaller markets, but still important, Luxembourg, Portugal, Greece, all of those add to the mix.
It makes sense, right? Because each country might have its own, like, driving culture, right? Or preferences when it comes to cars and what kind of features they want.
Absolutely, and government regulations can play a part too.
Yeah, so what about those driving forces? Are they similar to what we saw in North America, or are there things unique to the European market?
There are definitely some overlaps, but also some interesting distinctions. So the increasing demand for safety features and ADS, that's still a major driver.
Yeah.
People want to be safe on the road no matter where they are in the world. But the report really highlights the impact of government regulations in Europe when it comes to vehicle safety. They specifically mention things like rear view cameras and blind spot detection,
I'm guessing those are, like, mandatory in a lot of European countries.
becoming increasingly so.
Yeah.
And then you have the strong adoption of electric vehicles and premium vehicles in Europe. That's another key factor.
Oh, yeah. Those often come with, like, fancier, more high-tech mirrors, right?
They do. And Europe's also really embracing those smart or digital rear view mirrors, the ones that might have like a camera feed or even a little screen built in. So basically, you have this combination of regulations, consumer demand for safety, and those higher end vehicles, and then this embrace of new technology. All of those are pushing the European market forward.
Yeah. And it makes sense because, like, Europe has a lot of those really narrow, winding roads in those historic cities, so visibility and safety are going to be super important there.
Absolutely.
So North America, Europe, both big players. But now let's head over to the Asia-Pacific region. It seems like this region is really booming when it comes to, like, a lot of industries, and I'm curious to see how that's playing out in the rear view mirror market as well.
Yeah, they are definitely a force to be reckoned with. Asia Pacific currently holds around 23% of the global revenue, so a little smaller than North America and Europe, but still huge. Their market size is at USD 2,880.64 million in 2025.
Okay, that's already a pretty big chunk.
And then hold on to your hat because they're projected to grow at a CAGR of 7.5% from 2025 to 2033.
7.5.
That's right.
Wow, that's like way faster than North America and Europe. What's going on there?
That's the fastest growing region in this entire report. It's booming. It's incredible.
So what's fueling that rapid growth in the Asia Pacific?
Well, there are a few key factors. First off, you have this massive increase in vehicle production across the region. As more people are able to afford cars, demand is skyrocketing. And then similar to what we saw in other regions, there is this growing consumer demand for all those enhanced safety features and technology.
Okay, so auto dimming, smart mirrors, cameras, all that.
Exactly. And electric vehicles are also taking off in a big way in Asia Pacific.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, big time. Governments are also getting in on the action with stricter safety regulations, which are pushing manufacturers to incorporate more advanced mirror technology.
So it seems like it's kind of a perfect storm, right? You have the growing demand, the technology, and then the government regulations all kind of coming together to really push that market forward.
Yeah, and one more interesting thing the report mentioned, which is different from the other markets, the internal rearview mirror segment is actually the leading segment in the Asia Pacific region, and the growth of the luxury vehicle market is also having a big impact. So it seems like the focus is a little bit different there.
I wonder if that internal mirror thing has to do with maybe like more compact cars or maybe just the overall design aesthetic.
Could be. Could be. It's fascinating.
It's really cool to see those differences.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered North America, Europe, Asia Pacific. Now let's turn our attention to Latin America.
Okay, so Latin America is holding a market share of just over 5% with a market size of USD 626.23 million in 2025. And their projected CAGR is 4.9% from 2025 to 2033.
Okay, so they are also on a solid growth trajectory, even though their market share is a bit smaller at the moment. So in terms of key players, what countries are we talking about in the Latin American market?
Well, the report highlights Brazil, Argentina, those big players, and then Colombia, Peru, Chile as well, and of course all the other countries in Latin America.
Cool. So what's driving the market growth down there? What are the key factors?
They are seeing a combination of increasing automotive production and rising consumer demand for both safety and comfort features in their vehicles. Their middle class is expanding, they're seeing more urbanization, so more people are buying cars, and that's naturally increasing the demand for rear view mirrors. And, just like other regions, government regulations are also playing a role.
Yeah, it seems like safety is a global concern, and governments are becoming more proactive in implementing these regulations to make driving safer.
Absolutely. And in Latin America specifically, the report mentions that those electrochromatic mirrors, the ones that automatically dim, are a big driver. And there's a growing demand for those digital mirrors as well.
It sounds like they are catching on to those high-tech trends.
They are.
So last but not least, let's look at the Middle East and Africa.
Okay, so this region currently has a smaller market share, around 2%, with an estimated market size of USD 250.49 million in 2025. However, they're projected to have a CAGR of 5.2% from 2025 to 2033. So they're also on a good path.
Yeah, it sounds like even though they're starting from a smaller base, they are set for some pretty significant growth.
Absolutely.
And in terms of key markets within the Middle East and Africa, who are the big players there?
So we have the GCC countries, Egypt, South Africa, Turkey, and Nigeria as some of the significant markets driving this growth. And then, of course, the rest of the MEA region collectively contributes.
It seems like a pretty diverse region in terms of the countries and economies involved. So what's fueling that market growth in the Middle East and Africa?
Well, it's a combination of factors. We are seeing an increase in vehicle production as we've seen in other regions, but there is also a growing demand for safety features as people are becoming more aware of road safety, and rising incomes are also allowing people to afford cars with those extra features. People want to be safe on the road.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, governments are also stepping in with more regulations requiring these advanced mirror technologies, so that's also playing a role.
Absolutely. And for the Middle East and Africa specifically, the report notes that the passenger vehicle segment is the leader right now. And the increasing interest in electric and hybrid vehicles is also starting to influence the types of mirrors being adopted. So those are some exciting trends.
So it seems like the global rearview mirror market is really in motion, with different regions kind of experiencing different dress patterns and different drivers influencing the market. It's really fascinating. But now let's kind of zoom in a little bit and focus on the different types of rear view mirrors themselves and how the market is segmented. So let's start with the feature outlook. What are some of the key features that we see in rear view mirrors today, and which ones are the most popular?
So according to the report, the most prevalent feature right now is auto dimming. It's a game changer when it comes to safety and comfort because it gets rid of that annoying headlight glare.
Oh yeah, especially when you're driving at night.
Yes, especially at night and those long stretches on the highway.
So it makes sense that it's a popular feature.
Very popular.
But what about the features that are really gaining momentum, like the fastest growing segment?
So the fastest growing segment when it comes to features is blind spot detection. Safety is a huge concern these days, and with advancements in driver assistance technology, blind spot detection is becoming more and more common. You see it in new cars and even as an aftermarket upgrade for existing cars.
Oh yeah, I've seen those little like light indicators on the mirrors.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a huge safety feature.
Absolutely. And the report also talks about other features that are out there, like power control, automatic folding mirrors.
Oh yeah, I've had those. Those are great when you have a narrow garage.
Yeah, no more bumping into things.
Exactly.
You've got heated mirrors for those colder climates and, integrated turn signal indicators.
I love those because it's a lot easier for people to see when you're turning.
Absolutely. So you can see that there is a lot of innovation going on, all focused on safety and convenience.
And now let's move on to the vehicle type outlook. How does demand for rear view mirrors differ across various types of vehicles?
So it might not be surprising, but passenger vehicles are the largest segment by vehicle type. I mean, think about the sheer number of cars on the road. Every single one of those has at least a couple of rear view mirrors.
Yeah, it's a huge market. And within passenger vehicles, are we talking like all types of cars?
All types of cars. You've got those small hatchbacks, sedans, SUVs. They all need rear view mirrors. It's a basic safety feature.
Yeah, it makes sense. So then what's the fastest growing vehicle type when it comes to rear view mirror demand?
The fastest growing segment here is commercial vehicles. So we were talking about things like vans, trucks, buses, all those workhorses. And there are a few reasons for this growth. There's an increasing emphasis on safety for these larger vehicles. There are regulations being put in place to make sure they have better visibility. And just think about the wear and tear that those vehicles go through. They need replacements more often.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the report mentions a few other categories like off-road vehicles, which are also growing, but maybe not as rapidly as commercial vehicles.
So safety and regulations are driving that growth.
Very much so.
All right, now let's consider the position outlook. Where are these mirrors placed on a vehicle, and which positions are becoming more important?
So I think safe to say that the interior rear view mirror, that one on the windshield, that will always be the dominant position.
Yeah,
It's in every single car. You need it. It gives you that crucial view of what's directly behind you.
it's basic but essential.
Absolutely.
But where are we seeing the most growth in terms of mirror placement?
Exterior mirrors, those side mirrors are becoming much more sophisticated.
So that's where a lot of the innovation is happening.
That's right. They're not just about reflection anymore. They're getting all those cool features like the adaptive functionalities, heating, auto dimming, and they're also becoming more integrated with AS. A lot of the sensors for those systems are placed on or near the exterior mirrors.
It makes sense, right? Because those mirrors have a pretty good vantage point.
They do. And the report mentions a couple of other positions like roof-mounted mirrors or windshield-mounted mirrors, but those are more niche. They have specific purposes. The real action is with the exterior mirrors.
Okay, so from basic reflection to like a high-tech hub, that's pretty cool.
It is.
So we talked about placement, now let's talk about the type outlook. Are those traditional mirrors still the main thing, or are those fancy new ones taking over?
Well, for the time being, conventional mirrors are still the most common. They are simple, they are cost-effective, and they do the job. They've been working for decades. But, things are changing.
What's on the horizon?
Smart mirrors, those are the ones with all the bells and whistles. They are the fastest growing segment.
Those are the ones with the cameras and displays and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see why those would be growing so fast.
And as the cost of those technologies goes down and people become more used to having all this tech in their cars, you're going to see even more growth.
Yeah, it's like having a little computer right there on your mirror.
It is, it is. So it'll be interesting to see how that all develops over the next few years.
Okay, so let's dive a bit deeper into the actual mirror surface itself. What's the product type outlook? What types of mirrors are out there?
So the most basic type is the flat mirror. It's simple, it's cheap to make, and it gives you a clear view. Most cars have those flat mirrors, but, there are others out there that offer some advantages.
Like what?
So the fastest growing type is aspheric or wide-angle mirrors.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. They're kind of curved.
They are curved, and that curvature allows them to give you a much wider field of view.
Oh, that's good for blind spots, right?
It's all about reducing those eye-line spots and making lane changes safer.
It makes sense that those are becoming more popular.
Absolutely, and as people become more aware of blind spot hazards, I think I'm going to see even more demand for those.
So it seems like a lot of the innovation in rear view mirrors is really about visibility, about making sure drivers have as much information as possible to make safe decisions.
That's
The report also mentioned some other types of mirrors. What are those?
Yeah, you have the convex mirrors. They're the ones that bulge out. They give you a wider view, but things also appear smaller. And those are often used for specific purposes like in parking garages or on trucks. And then you have those two-piece spotter mirrors and two-piece tow mirrors. Those are for, those really specific needs, especially if you are towing something.
Okay, so now that we understand the different types of mirrors and their features, let's talk about how they get into our cars. What's the sales channel outlook? How are these mirrors actually reaching consumers?
So the dominant channel is still the OEM, original equipment manufacturer. That basically means that the mirrors are directly supplied to the car companies to be installed during the assembly process. That makes sense because they need a lot of mirrors and they need them designed for specific car models.
Yeah, it's like a built-in system.
Yeah, a very efficient system.
But what about those aftermarket mirrors? The ones you can buy and install yourself or have a mechanic install for you.
That is actually the fastest growing sales channel. And there are a couple of reasons for that. First, people need replacements. Mirrors get damaged, they wear out, so there's always going to be that demand. But more and more people are upgrading their existing cars with fancier mirrors. Maybe they want those smart mirrors, those blind spot detection systems.
Yeah, because if you bought a car like 5 years ago, you might not have all the features that are standard in cars today.
Exactly. So people are looking for ways to kind of modernize their cars, make them safer, and aftermarket mirrors give them that option. So it's a really interesting trend because it shows that people are not just settling for what came with their car.
Yeah, they are looking for ways to improve it. So the rear view mirror market's not just about new cars.
No, not at all.
It's also about those existing cars on the road. Okay, so we've talked about the market size, the different regions, the types of mirrors. Now let's zoom out and talk about the big picture. What are the market drivers? What's fueling this growth?
So the report identifies three main drivers. First, the constant innovation in mirror technology. It's like every year there's something new,
Yeah.
more features, better designs, and that creates demand. People want those new features. Then you have the overall increase in vehicle production globally, especially in the developing countries where more and more people are buying cars. So that's a huge driver. And lastly, you have the consumer demand for comfort and convenience. People want their cars to be like little sanctuaries.
Oh, yeah.
And those fancy mirrors with auto dimming, integrated displays, all that stuff, it definitely adds to that feeling of comfort and luxury.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
So those three factors are really pushing this market forward.
So it's not just about safety.
No, it's about more than safety.
It's about comfort. It's about technology. It's really about an overall, driving experience and making that experience better. But every market has its challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
So what about the market restraints? What are some of the hurdles that this market is facing?
So the report mentions two main restraints. The first is the cost of those advanced features. All those cameras and sensors can be expensive.
Yeah, it makes those cars more expensive, which can be a barrier for some consumers.
Exactly. And the second constraint is regulations.
Regulations. But we were just talking about how regulations were driving growth in some regions.
Yeah, but regulations can be a double-edged sword.
How so?
So on the one hand, regulations can push manufacturers to include those safety features in their mirrors.
Yeah.
That can boost the market. But when those regulations are really strict or when they change all the time, it can be a nightmare for the companies. They have to redesign their products, make sure they comply, and that can slow things down and add to the costs.
That's interesting. So it's not that regulations are bad.
No, not at all.
It's just that they have to be well thought out and they have to be implemented in a way that doesn't stifle innovation. Okay, so we talked about the drivers, we talked about the restraints. Now let's look into the future. What are some of the market trends that are shaping the future of automotive rear view mirrors?
So one of the biggest trends is the increasing adoption of those smart rear view mirrors. The ones with the built-in cameras, digital displays, all that cool stuff. As technology gets cheaper, more and more people are going to want those features in their cars. And the other big trend is using lighter, more durable materials.
So that's about fuel efficiency.
It's about fuel efficiency. It's about being eco-friendly. And also, if you can make a mirror that's super strong and lightweight, that's good for everybody.
Yeah, it makes the car safer.
Exactly.
So it seems like the rear view mirror of the future is going to be a lot more than just a piece of reflective glass.
It'll be a high-tech gadget.
Yeah, that's cool. And finally, let's take a peek at the competitive landscape. Who are the big players in this market?
So the report tells us that this market is really competitive. Lots of companies are vying for a piece of the pie, and they are doing it through innovation, mostly. They are trying to develop the most advanced mirrors with the best features.
So it's like an arms race.
Kind of, yeah.
Who can come up with the coolest, most high-tech mirror?
Exactly. And they are also forming partnerships, merging with other companies, acquiring smaller companies, all those business strategies you hear about. It's a dynamic market.
The report mentioned a few specific companies, and I think these are really interesting examples. So in March 2022, Ford announced a major expansion of its electric vehicle production in Europe.
That's right.
So that's going to create a lot of demand for those advanced mirror systems.
It will.
And then in January 2022, General Motors made this huge investment in EV manufacturing and battery technology in Michigan. So they are clearly betting big on the future of EVs, and those EVs will need rear-view mirrors.
They will.
And then there's a company called Holotech Europe GmbH, which is developing cameras for rear-view mirror replacement and ADAS integration. So they are on the cutting edge.
Yeah, so you can see lots of activity, lots of innovation.
It's a really exciting time for this market.
It is.
So to sum it all up, it seems like even though the rear-view mirror seems like a simple thing, it's actually part of this huge global market that's constantly evolving, and it's all driven by safety concerns, by technology, by consumer demand for comfort and convenience.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is that even with all these advancements in car technology, with all those sensors and cameras, the rearview mirror is still a critical part of the driving experience. People still need to see what's behind them.
Yeah, you can't replace that basic need.
And I think that's why this market is so interesting, because it's taking something that's been around for a long time and making it even better, even smarter.
Yeah, it's not just a mirror anymore. It's like a window into the future of driving.
I like that.
So here's a question for you to think about. Imagine 10 years from now, given how fast technology is moving, how do you think that rear view mirror will change? Will it still be a mirror? Or will it be something completely different? And how will that change the way we drive, the way our cars are designed? That's something to think about.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an eye-opening look at the world of automotive rear view mirrors.
It has.
Until next time.
See ya.